If you remember from last week, we were talking about doing this one. It's going to be our worst injuries that we ever had that weren't on BMX bikes. I mean, you guys all know my injury for the most part. I mean, my broken neck, you know, the fact that I have a plastic forehead now, it's still crazy for me to even imagine that that's reality. But I also had a ton of other injuries, like in BMX. I ended up, what did I do? I broke my leg twice. I broke my foot really bad. My foot was a really bad injury. Like when I had to get the surgery, I was in a cast for 15 weeks. That took forever. That was like one of the worst injuries I've ever had. I knocked out my teeth twice with the old double backflip crash. And before that, a month before that, I did a foot jam on the wall and then knocked out the other 2 teeth. So yeah, I did 4 teeth within a month in 2 separate occasions. I mean, I've had stitches and stuff like that over the years. Nothing like too crazy. You broke your leg or ankle, right?
I broke my tib and fib. So I have a plate and 8 screws on my left leg. I also tore my ACL on my left leg.
Oh, the ACL.
And got that redone. So I had to get meniscus and ACL repair. And then I broke my right thumb. I have an AC separation.
But is that something that you always have, or is it just one-time deal?
The AC separation?
Yeah.
No, that's from airing over that caution tape.
Yeah, when you fell.
Yeah.
That was bad.
That was terrible. But they just can't do anything about it.
We talked about that when we said that was Matty's worst crash he
That was
ever
probably
had.
my worst crash. That sucked.
He claims that ruined him. That was
really bad.
So yes, BMX is not a safe or an easy sport, and there's people crashing every single day and getting terrible, terrible injuries. The only thing you can do is to protect yourself the best way you can and just wear a helmet. I know it's not cool to wear a helmet, but what's really not cool is burdening your family with a bunch of medical debt and the fact that you can't take care of yourself and you can't live a normal life because you now have a brain injury that will never come back to normal. So just think about that every time you go to do your riding without a helmet. It's the truth though. That can happen to anybody. It can happen anytime. I mean, look at me. I broke my neck not even doing a trick. I was like riding away from the trick. And I had a helmet on too. So just imagine that. Back to it. We're going to talk about our worst injuries that weren't on BMX bikes. I think you'll start. Do I want to start? Who wants to start?
I'll start. Yeah, I guess my worst injury, I don't even remember.
I'm shocked that you don't remember it.
I have actually zero recollection of it. We used to live in a trailer park. I could picture where it was.
Do you remember what the trailer was like at all?
I remember exactly what the trailer layout was.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, is I could picture looking through the trailer.
Because how old were you when we moved out of the
6,
trailer?
Roughly 5.
No.
Yeah, something like that.
Nope.
Are you sure?
So you were born in 97. We moved out of the trailer park in November of 2001.
So 4.
Yeah. So.
Ish.
Yeah, right? Just past 4 maybe?
Because I know I got my first race bike not too much later after.
Okay.
It was a red felt.
Okay. But if you got a red felt, that was in 2003 because that's when I started riding for felt. At least 2003. So, but you were young, so it's all big mix.
No idea, but I still remember looking through the trailer. But
being that young and still like having recollection of what the trailer's like, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I could picture what it's like. I could picture like little things like eating chalk, stuff like that. But I don't really picture much else from there. But my worst injury, basically I climbed up on a stove and I must have grabbed a boiling pot of hot water and just completely emptied it on myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember it. I don't know if you remember what it looked like.
I remember it. I watched it happen.
Yeah. See, I don't know what I looked like. I never felt I don't know what the pain of it was, but all I know is luckily I made it out.
It was bad.
Pretty good from that.
It was really bad, actually. So the trailer, it's one straight thing, right? So you could see from one side to the other pretty much. I was sitting in the living room and I'm looking down, like I have you in the corner of my eye because the TV was the same direction as,
but the hallway was on the left.
As where the hallway to the kitchen part. Like Matty said, he pulled down the oven door. I remember seeing it happening and then like you pulled the water down and you fell back with it. You fell on the ground and then you were screaming so loud. Like the craziest scream ever, and my mom ran over there and she was freaking out, and I just remember I just start crying because like you were in so much pain and I felt so bad for you. Like I just didn't know how to handle it. So I was just crying so bad. And like every part of his, from pretty much like the neck area down, because he had like a diaper on or shorts, it was just red and blisters and the skin was just bubbling. It was, I remember like that day, like seeing it happen, I couldn't fathom how it would get better. I just thought it was one of those things that you were going to be ruined for your whole life.
Wow.
Like, honestly, it was so bad. You guys went to the hospital that night. Like, I guess I was probably 13 at the time, so I was probably able to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
When you came back from the hospital, you were all bandaged up. She had to put stuff on you, like, you know, the typical burn care.
Cream, I'm sure, yeah.
But what was so crazy is it didn't take very long.
To heal?
Yes, to
maybe
heal.
Maybe I was a baby. Maybe I was just constantly, you know, growing. Maybe
it could
skin
be that.
just...
But like it healed pretty quickly, and you have zero... There's nothing on his body. You'd be like,
scar.
Wow, that dude was severely burned.
Literally nothing. Like, I have no recollection of any of this. So like the story that I know is just from my parents pretty much telling me that, like, hey Matt, watch out for the hot water. And I feel like even for years after that was always like, not a joke, like it was something like more like,
yeah,
you know, hey, don't do that again. Watch out for the hot water. Watch out for the hot water.
I think it's always good, man, when you, like, it's almost it is a blessing that you don't have a memory of it, because like when it comes to me breaking my neck, I have no memory of that day, and I'm so grateful for it. Like, you know, our friend Mick, the hockey player that was in the rehab facility when I was there, he broke his neck and he was fully awake the whole time.
He knows exactly what happened.
Like, so, and like, I'm like glad that I don't have to think about that
or
have
really
that living in my head. It's just, so I feel for people that go through those traumas and relive those traumas in their minds. And I think we both got really lucky in that situation that he doesn't do it. But
yeah.
But that was insane. It was a crazy day. Like that scared the heck out of me. I think that was Matty's worst injury besides outside of BMX.
And thankfully, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about it.
So we'll move on to my worst injury outside of BMX. The only one that's sticking out to me is, I guess this is a traumatic thing that goes through my mind. Just as we were talking about the one, you know, break my neck, I forgot, you forgot that. But this one, it still is in my mind like it was yesterday. And then I'll tell you the whole story right now. So we're going all the way back to July 5th, year 1997, year Matty was born. So it was, how many days after you were born?
July 5th?
Yeah.
4 days.
4 days, yeah, because you're July 1st. My mom was still in the hospital, I believe. Yeah, she was still in the hospital.
I didn't even know that.
And then I was staying at my friend Phil DeLizia's house. So Phil DeLizia, we used to race together. My mom wasn't home, so you know his family was taking care of me, and it was awesome. We were having the best time ever. We stayed up super late for 4th of July. And I say super late, maybe 1 a.m. But like it was like as a 10-year-old, like that's late. So
we had Pepsi and cookies.
We had it all. So we woke up pretty late for, you know, like a regular day. Like we were getting like out of bed at like 1 p.m. Like it was like we were hanging out inside of his. I remember that the Terminator was on, Terminator 2. We were watching that for a while. We finally got to the point where we're like, all right, let's go jump on the trampoline. So it was me, Phil, and his cousin. I don't remember his cousin's name, but he was the same age as us. So Phil's house is really interesting. Phil had a trampoline on the front of his house. So the backyard, he had the pool, he had like, it was all fenced in, but the trampoline was in the front yard. So we left the back of the house to go to the front. Phil already went to the front. It was me and his cousin that were walking in the back. So we're walking out, and then as we're walking there, his Rottweiler named Spike came running up to us. No problems at all. Never had an issue with Spike. Spike was a very friendly dog. He was a really big Rottweiler. He's probably over 100 pounds. I'd say. Like it was a big dog.
A big dog.
But yeah, he was great. No problems at all. So you know, we were both 10 years old, so we're little kids. We're walking towards the gate, and we're going to leave the gate. Spike's trying to get out with us outside. So I told the kid, I was like, here, you go out front, I'll go put Spike in his cage. So the second he walked out, I closed the gate. I started walking, I said, come here, Spike. And he just snapped like that. Just completely snapped and just went into kill mode. So it happened so fast. He just started attacking me. Like the first thing I did was like run onto like the side of like where his table was. Like he had like a table right there. I like was running away from him and he jumped up on my back and bit my back. Then I ran from him and I tried to jump onto the 6-foot fence and get myself over. So I jumped, grabbed onto it, tried to pull myself up, but he grabbed me by my leg and ripped me down. Wow. So that was my left leg that he bit and then pulled me down. I fell, I ran around the pool, all the way around the pool, like away from the house. And then I ran towards the house, and this is where it gets interesting. Like there was one of those screen doors that doesn't have like a door lock or a pin on it. You know what I mean? Like the one that would, like,
swings open.
Yeah, it just swings open, swings closed. So it was a screen door that goes into the garage like that. If my hand was the door, you would immediately come in and then go up 3 steps to the door to get into the house. So that, you know, it was separate from the garage. And to make things worse too, I open up the door and I close it, but the screen is blown out in the bottom.
So he's went right there.
So he's trying to come through, and I was holding my hand on it and holding that, and I saw the door and I just went for one last dash to it, and I grabbed the door and he bit me again on my leg.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, and then he also bit my hand too. So like when I put my hand down, he bit my hand here, so you can see those scars from there that I still have. So it was insane, crazy situation. I remember running inside the house and his mom and dad were there, and like I could just see his dad's face was like, oh my God. Like, and I was bleeding, there's cuts all over the place, like, and he's like bandaging me up, he's calling my parents, my mom's in the hospital already. So they told him the situation, we ran to the hospital, and I remember, yeah, his parents were just so worried. Looking back now, I'm like, man, I couldn't even imagine what they were thinking in their heads, you know, from that. So I ended up being in the hospital. I got my hand stitched up, I got my leg stitched up, and then my right leg was my worst one. That was the one when I was going from the screen door inside where he bit me. And I was wearing shorts, so it's not like I had pants or anything. He just, you know, got my leg bad. Like I had a huge like chunk of my leg missing. So I ended up having to like to go to like this like plastic surgeon specialist like that came in and like did my leg. Listen, I was 10.
I don't know what you
do,
but
I have no idea what he did, but like I said, it was a big chunk missing out of the leg. So he did something to bridge that gap. I don't even know. Like I said, July, I'm 10 years old. Summertime is the greatest time, you know, of the year. And then like it's like I'm sitting at home, all bandaged up, couldn't do really anything at all.
Wow.
Phil and Phil's family came to visit me, and they brought me a N64.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's when I got my N64 and I got Mario Kart, and that made everything a lot better.
That helps out. That definitely helps.
That was a big difference.
Best summer ever. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, but like as time went by, like I started healing enough that like, you know, I was able to go outside a little bit. I couldn't, you know, ride my bike or whatever. But I remember this too. This is a story that I'll bridge off of it. So there was this lake that was at the trailer park. When I say a lake, it was like what they call like a retention pond, like, you know, like a small thing like that. Like it wasn't like a proper lake. I'll show you the Google Earth right here to show you it really wasn't anything impressive. But we spent every day of our life at that lake. Like as kids, all of us would just go down there and just hang out and try to catch any kind of living animal we possibly could. I caught it all at that lake, I swear. I was there, and there was 2 other kids with me. There was this kid named Steve, and there was this kid named Connor. Steve was like a year younger than me, and then Connor was a couple of years younger than me, so he's probably like 7 or 8. At this point, I still have my bandages on, but I'm not gonna let that hold me back. I put on waders, like big boots. I don't know where I got these waders from, but they came all the way up to my thighs, and I'm getting in the pond. You know, like I have like a deep sea fishing net that had like holes like this big in it. There's not many things in this pond that were big enough to stay in that net, but I was out there. I was trying it. It was a really weird day. It was a sunny day, but it was really windy, and it was abnormally cold. Just a strange day, whatever. Like, so I'm inside the lake, and I'm just sitting there waiting, and it's super windy, like I said, and just out of nowhere, the wind picked up, and I heard this like, and I look in front of me, and there was a water spout that showed up in this lake.
Insane.
Yeah, and it was, if I had to guess right now, it was probably between 15 and 20 feet high. in this lake, and I'm
What the
like
heck?
thinking about it, I just don't get how this was possible, but it happened. I just watched the movie Twister, like, you know, probably that year or the year before, and I used to watch it all the time. So I'm terrified of tornadoes, absolutely terrified of tornadoes, but I know what to do. So
Get Dorothy.
didn't have Dorothy on me, but I knew I had to get to a tree ASAP. So I ran out and I got to a tree and I grabbed onto the tree and it just never came out of the water and it just dissipated. But man, that was the craziest
Hugging
thing.
a tree for a couple hours.
It happened quick. It was like 4 or 5 seconds and the thing was done. But like I said, I was with these younger kids and I didn't really have, you know, much proof about this besides my word. And then I was like, ask Steve and ask Connor. And they're just like little kids, so nobody believed this at all, man. That was a very, very crazy summer, but
Sounds like a lot happened.
it did. So yeah, so those are our worst injuries outside of BMX, and that's where it's going to stop. That's as worst as it ever gets for us. So I'm glad we experienced them early on, and then we're all going to be good now, you know. So
We're just trending upward. Here we go.
yeah,
We're
it's
moving
all
on up.
positive from here on out. So, and if any of you were like bit by dogs or anything like that, if you could put it in the comment what kind of dog it was, or if you got stitches or anything like that, I'd be really curious to see like the different kinds of dogs that were in there, because there's so many different dogs out there that like you'd be like, oh, that dog would never bite anybody. Like those little dogs, those tiny ones, those things are vicious.
At the end of the day, dude, they're animals.
Yes.
Anything can happen. You gotta listen. You could have the friendliest dog in the world, but clearly things can happen.
When I was younger, like I was like, I'm never owning a dog because I don't want him to attack somebody. And then once I met an English bulldog, I was like,
All right, we'll be all right. We'll be okay. He can't bite me anyway.
I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh, we're fine. But yeah, that's why I ended up getting the English bulldogs. But I still like, you know, like my little French bulldog right now, he's a little rambunctious and he does bite a little bit and he gets me a little nervous, but we'll see. We'll be careful with that. So yeah, that's it for this one. And I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.